So the title of the show, Scissors is Our Love Language, came about after several playful attempts to come up with various titles for our pieces and for the show. We have probably 30 different potential titles written down on pieces of tape hanging over Diane's studio. But we thought this one was appropriate because scissors, we did a lot of collage work and we were cutting up each other's pieces and piecing things back together. So as a nod to our friendship and our collaboration, we thought that was kind of a funny way of acknowledging our process of working together.
Now, with a lot of the titles and phrases that we have stuck on paper around the studio, a lot of them have multiple meanings, and obviously scissors can be, running with scissors comes to mind, attacking someone with scissors, and also just, connecting through destroying and recreating, and that relationally connecting through destroying and recreating all come to mind. I mean, it was just a silly thing that got said, and then it just kept having more meaning. So, yeah, aggression, reparation, draw your own conclusions, really. I think one of the things that drew us together and made us like each other's work is the world in each of our sort of probably psyches and work that embraces, the dark and the absurd and the sad and the tragic and the really silly, all sort of in conversation with each other. And through working together, it seems like that's become amplified.
Well, I think a lot of the pieces that we have been making, we made during COVID pandemic times, and now they resurface in this way of working together. We made new work out of those pieces. And it was, it's been such a dark time, and getting together, the act of creating together. We were also, we became really great friends, and we had a lot of fun in the studio. So we kind of transformed a lot of the work to create new meaning that I think is hopeful and playful. Yeah, I think, the juxtaposition of melancholy and humor does come through with Mary Queen of Scots the Butt. Also through the name. We often, would make work without necessarily thinking too much, and then it would come to us, and the title would come to us. So usually something really impulsive, and then we would laugh, and it would stick. But also, the original works were both very dark works, I think, but now they exemplify our relationship as collaborators.
I have a lot of thoughts about having to understand what was intended in a work of art, especially a painting. I mean, for me, for our work and for the work that I respond most to, there's almost like a ethereal spiritual transmission that can't really be named and explained. And even if there's a narrative, what does that mean in the end when you're the receiver? And you're getting this transmission. So, I've never been particularly interested in understanding narrative as it's intended, unless I'm looking at 14th century. What do you think?
I think the works are, our intention, our hope is that the works do not need to rely on any backstory or narrative, that they can be, a person can approach them and get a sense, enjoy the aesthetic appeal of, the mixture of abstraction and figuration, exterior and interior worlds, of color, use of color and composition. And I think, they're emotive, and that's something that's important to us, that we are more interested, both of us are more interested in the feeling that one gets when experiencing an artwork.
Yeah, and I would say that as we started working together, and then when we started actually painting on the same painting, it really feels sort of organic and magical, and if there's a narrative element, it's something that sort of arises like if you were making soup and you didn't know what you put into it, and suddenly there was this, aroma coming out, and you were like, oh my God, I mean, it feels like magic that there are narrative elements, but, there's not a map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the beginning of our collaboration started really like cutting each other's work up and pasting and refiguring, and it was, a little bit awkward at first, and we weren't sure where we were going with it, and then over time it became way more intuitive about how we work together and what pieces of mine that I trusted Diane with to take and reimagine it, and vice versa. So.
Well, we've been doing it in real time, so we just work together, and so that sort of questioning and going, what do you think? Oh God, is often happening in real time. And it's always happening in real time. We don't work and then bring it to the other guy. And so I've noticed that I keep growing because the things I'm most uncomfortable with are often like, oh God, that green, are often then the things I love the most later. And so we'll kind of go, I don't know about that, but then the other person does what they're going to, I don't know. It's very much a dance of intuition and just kind of.
Yes, certainly. I trust Diane's eye, and I get very pleased to see what she comes up with. I think the most interesting thing that happened during our collaboration is when we started painting together. Get a Room, our big painting, is we laid out the paper on the floor and started working at the same time. And initially, it was very free form and just go with easygoing. And then as more decisions needed to be made with the painting, I could feel there was a little more of a tension in our decisions there, which made it even more interesting.
Yes, you get more attached to something that you like, and you see the other person going in. Plus the size of it and the fact that we're painting together. I mean, I don't know people that do that. I've done a lot of collaboration, but never like two people. Like I was like saying we were dancing around like witches, cooking up this thing together. And then when something occurs, then you get attached to it, and the other person might move in on it. It's really great. It's really great because really, what's going to be lost? But there's these weird moments of.
I could get aggressive with that painting, so I found myself getting self-conscious.
Yeah, we've got another one going, and I looked at it the other day and I thought, man, here we go again. Because they're big, and who knows?
Yeah. Well, I have been collaborating with this artist, Steve Reinke, who is known for his videos, and that process is really different than the one I have with Diane, where I create a story of characters, and I record the voices, and I give Steve all of my materials, the drawings and the backgrounds, and he creates his own piece kind of separately with a soundtrack that I don't see until the end. So it's a very different way of working. But that process has really opened up my practice a lot in the way I see my own work and thinking about how the creatures come alive and what they can do in the world. So it's been a really helpful way for me to rethink what 2D work can do.
Yeah, my animation is, it depends on what animation I'm working on, but it tends to be very sort of in the same net as my painting, in that I do stop motion shooting, painting as I'm doing it, and then I edit things together, which is very much more like collaging. Right now I'm collaborating with somebody who used to be hired person, Ali Trigoso, who is genius animator, and it's a slightly different animation that I'm working on now, but in general, they tend to be very similar in that the animation is very much like collaging and not coming from a narrative perspective. The one we're working on now, there is an actual narrative and we're building things around it, but I do them both at the same time, and I'm almost always working on animation at the same time as painting. And Jessie and I are going to be doing some animation together for a show that will be at the Arts Club in Chicago in the spring. And so we shall see. I think that'll probably end up more like a combo of some sort of narrative and some collaging together snippets of animation. So for me, it's like I'm just cooking two things on the stove all the time.
I am too.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in a non-linear narrative, a more kind of absurdist.
Right with you, sister. Yeah, I'm a therapist. I work with couples and individuals. I work more as an artist than a therapist, but I continue to have a practice.
I think that my background in social work does inform my art practice. I do like to keep my artwork separate from my career in philanthropy, mostly because I don't want to make social practice art or community-based art, but I enjoy working for community-based organizations. So I see there is overlap, but I don't want my work to be viewed through that lens. But the way in which I think that I care for people and for communities and believe that all art should be accessible to everyone. I think in that way it makes sense for me. In
Yeah.
social work.
I appreciate all that. I think of the world sort of relationally, and I think that relational lens contributes to really wanting to collaborate and also wanting to have a sort of more democratic, ground-up art world and a community of art viewers and makers. So in those ways, I think being a social worker has an impact on creating, but they're obviously completely different practices. But as a therapist, I'm always thinking relationally and connectively, and that's the same lens that happens with collaborating.
At the foundation I work for, the Raven David Logan Foundation, all of our arts grants there is social overlap with social justice. So usually, in the community-based setting. Well, my favorite work in the show is Trophy Wife, which is behind us. It was one of the first pieces that we made together, and it just, I don't visually, I mean, it just as the composition, I find it really appealing, and the titles are very important, so Trophy Wife just had us laughing. But I think it symbolizes who we are as a team.
Yeah. Good, I'm glad you chose that, because I forgot about it for a minute, because it was right behind me. I'm going to choose Get a Room, because I never in a million years thought that I would do a big painting with another person and that it would be so surprising and so fun. And I could look at that thing for days and always find something new. And that's an insane thing to say about something that you made yourself. I mean, that's the best work, is when you're constantly finding magic in it, but like, I'm so excited about doing more big paintings and just, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I really appreciate what you said about Trophy. Yeah, I love her. I mean, her, but I love Trophy Wife. Yeah. It's so funny that you chose that because I really do, and there's something so weird about that piece. It's just
I mean, they're all weird, right?
But that totally
that
feels like
one
it
just-
could pop into an animation, like it could just
Yeah, it's just
Tim Burton out or something, you know? Yeah.
the way
I mean, with each one of these, it's kind of like, what the hell just happened every time we make something, which is such a great thing to have.
well, you're like, is this really dumb or are we geniuses? I don't know.
It's that
It's a
thin
fine line.
It's a fine line. Isn't that a Pretender song or something? Yeah, it's a thin line between dumb and brilliant. And we are just on that
right.
razor's edge.